A very good morning to all of you and a very warm welcome to today's class. This is a research writing and communication course organized by the Consciousness Studies program at the National Institute of Advanced Studies, Bangalore. And as you all know, today is the last class of our course. And interestingly, we have a very, very good speaker today who is not just our guide, but also a professor and head of Consciousness Studies program and also dean of the School of Humanities at NIAS. So very, very happy to have you here today, Dr. Sangeetha Menon, ma'am. So a few words about Dr. Sangeetha before we start our session. Most of you must be familiar with her. She is the reason why we are having this course to begin with. So Dr. Sangeetha, apart from being a professor at NIAS, her major area of research is in philosophy and psychology. Her expertise is in Indian philosophy, consciousness studies, philosophy of psychology, philosophy and psychology of self, bio and neuroethics, and neurophilosophy. She works with her colleagues at NIAS and collaborators across the world in creating and encouraging a first-person centered approach to understanding consciousness and cognitive capabilities that favors experiential well-being for all. Dr. Menon's professional qualifications include degrees in biology and philosophy. She also has extensive research background in psychology. She is a rank holder and gold medalist from Maharaja's College for Women, Trivandrum, for postgraduate degree in philosophy. And the thesis of her doctoral degree is from the University of Kerala, is on the concept of consciousness in the Bhagavad Gita, which was completed with a junior and senior research fellowship from UGC India. So that is a very brief introduction. Ma'am has written very extensively and prolifically in her subjects. So there is no end to the edited volumes and papers that she has published. And it is indeed a pleasure and honor to have you today, ma'am. So over to you for the last class of the session, which I'm sure will be thoroughly interesting. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Meera. And I didn't know that you will be introducing me as well. So, well, introduction is always a little bit of embarrassing because you suddenly remember about yourself. I like to forget about myself most of the time, and particularly in that class. But thank you, Meera, for the nice words. And I see about 93 people in this group, and 6, 7, 8. And out of 93 people, 8 people's video I am able to see, which means I'm able to see them. And out of 93, 8 people are able to see me, and I'm able to see the other. That means the bandwidth is in this country is in a very poor status. And most of the internet providers may have to be really, critiqued because it's a very big ratio. 93:8. So I request you to, this is the last class, and let's see each other if your bandwidth allows. And of course, I understand if your bandwidth is a problem, and do message me if your bandwidth is an issue. But it's good to see each other, isn't it? And today is the last class of this particular course, which all of you have been attending with a lot of interest and enthusiasm and participation. So it's wonderful to have been interacting with you, and particularly the coordinators of this course, and I will talk about perhaps that later. But what I wanted to perhaps mention is today is the final class. I wish to see you, and I'm sure even if I can't see you, you are able to see me. Isn't it that a bit unfair? So that's why I request you, if you are able to see me, why not give me an opportunity to see you as well? Isn't it an equal, fair world we all want to live in? Today's class is a bit of a provocative class, and so I request you to keep an open mind, and I'm sure you would have your own ways of looking at the issue which I'll be talking to you, and I would welcome you to think differently and to share your thoughts as the occasion comes. So perhaps without further ado, may I request Meera to share the PPT? And before that, Meera, so what we will be doing is, first, I want your engagement with the class. So usually a class starts with the lecture and the lecturer going on till the last 10 minutes. I'm talking about the usual thing. This course, I think many of the classes was very interactive. So, but usually we like to be in a class where the lecturer continues to talk and you can be in your own world, and at the end 10 minutes, gather yourself and engage with the lecturer. But this class is not going to be that. I'm going to have to request your attention throughout this class. So please be present with me and let us travel together. So what we will be doing is Meera will be sharing a particular slide, or perhaps I'll be guiding her, and I'll be telling you what to do when she shares a particular slide. And if you have any doubt, you can message in the chat box, and I would really like the chat box to be active. And but as much as possible, what I'm going to ask you, please don't analyze it too much. So that's a request to begin with for that particular exercise, which I'm requesting you to do. So with that, may I request Meera to share the very first slide. I'm assuming that almost all of you can see what is in the screen. Give us a thumbs up if you are able to see. Okay, all right. So I have written something in that slide, which is write what you see. And if you ask me, what should I write? How should I write? How many lines? How much word limit? I'm not going to say anything. There are no guidelines, no format. What I request you to do is write what you see. And Meera will share perhaps for this 2 to 3 minutes. And you can start writing. And it's not that you have to write an essay. Basically, I think this particular exercise, part of this exercise of you writing, should be over in about 2 to 3 minutes. So write what you see. No guidelines, no format. Okay, well, you don't have to necessarily write in the chat box now, so that others need not be influenced by what you write. Just write it in your notebook. I didn't mean you to write it in the chat box now. Just write it in your notebook. And what I requested is write what you see. Please don't share it now in the chat box so that we don't influence the other person. I forgot to tell you that. All right, is it 2 to 3 minutes, Meera?
We have another minute to go.
Okay, all right. And please stay with us in the video unless your video bandwidth is not working, because I'm going to call out as many people as you are there out there. So let's see each other, and I wish to keep my request on. I have not switched off my request. So please don't switch off your videos. All right, so please keep your videos on as much as possible unless your video bandwidth is not working.
Ma'am, I've stopped screen sharing now.
Yeah, I see that. All right, so thank you. I think some of you have already written in the chat box, and so I'm not going to look at the chat box now so that I also get to hear from you what you have written. So the idea was to write what you see. If some of you would like to volunteer to read out or just to share what you wrote in your paper exactly as it is, please raise your hand so that one of the coordinators can allow you to unmute and speak up.
So I see Kanchan and Harika, also Trinath. So first I will unmute Kanchan.
Just 1 second, Mira. So are there only 3 people who wish to share what they have written? Please raise your hand. I mean, it's a reactions button electronically. Mira, you may have to, I thought they would know by this time where the hand is. You want to tell?
Okay, so if you want to raise your hands, there is an option in the reactions button, which is under your screen. So please use it. Yeah, so I see a lot of hands now, ma'am. So shall we?
Yeah, I only see 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Is there more than that?
No,
11,
I can also see
12. Yeah. I'm sure even if your bandwidth is poor, you can raise your hand. That should not be a problem. Niharika, can you please take a screenshot of the squares with the hands so that we know how many are there in with us? All right. Okay. Okay, may I begin with, I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing your name right. Selika C. Hi. I think she has to be unmuted, Mira.
Yeah, we have.
Oh, thank you. Unmuted. No, thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Selika,
well, I'm happy to share this, but this is really simple. Yes.
Yeah. So what we request you is just not make full sentences. Just read what you wrote.
I'll read what I wrote.
Yes, please.
Spacey atrium. Okay. Spacey atrium, lights, people, elephant, IMAX advertisement.
Thank you. Nisha Prabhakar.
Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes.
Ma'am, I wrote a grand hall, tons of people gathered around, a mammoth from a different era.
All right. And my friend Nandini from Mauritius. Nandini, I think you are still muted. I can't hear you.
We're requesting you to.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I've written public in a museum atrium, mammoth on display.
All right. Nagashri. Thank you, Nandini. Nagashri?
Am I audible?
Yeah,
Yes.
you're audible. I can't see you, but I guess, yeah.
Yeah, good morning. I have written like a exhibition or art show with inquiry sections, people moving around. A big building has a ground floor and the first floor with a big elephant model in the center.
All right. Thank you, Nagashri.
Thank you.
Vimi from Mauritius again. I think you have to be unmuted.
Am I audible now?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, okay. So I wrote about a gathering of people inside a building, most probably a museum, admiring mammoth display in the atrium.
All right, thank you. And please lower your hand if you're finished asking your question so that we know how many of you have finished asking your question. Please lower your hand if you're finished asking your question. And Amol Preet Kaur.
Yeah. Am I audible now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So I have written it's a kind of museum, and elephant is there at the center, which is a little broken, I guess, and people are moving around. Some are standing in the first balcony.
All right. Thank you. Dhanya Nair.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes.
I have written it's a big building with 2 floors, and it may be an open space for some sort of art exhibition, and it is crowded. Most of the people are engaged, but somehow go unnoticed. And there is a big elephant in the center of the building, and it looks like a mammoth, and maybe an art gallery because there are some boards hanging in front of it. That's all, ma'am.
Thank you. And once again, those who have finished asking the questions, please lower your hand. And Meera, now can you just call out people as you see who have raised their hands?
Yeah, sure, ma'am. Kanchan, I see you. So please go ahead.
This site triggers memory and prevents me from seeing what actually it is. It reminds me of those days when we all thronged at malls, railway stations, and sea of people. It doesn't matter which place it is, which country does it belong to.
Kanchan, 1 second.
Yeah.
You have to read what you wrote.
Yeah, I'm reading out. I have written it in the notepad and I'm reading it.
I see. Okay.
It doesn't matter which country this site belongs to, but we went back for such a site again. The elephant who is catching the eyeballs and stands tall in the middle reminds me of the days where life was throbbing.
Life was what?
Throbbing.
I see. Okay. Meera.
Thank you, Kanchan. Niharika, you can next.
I just wrote 2 words, which is curiosity and information.
Okay. Thank you. Trinath, asking you to unmute now.
I wrote, it looks like a visit to biological archaeological museum. It has got 2 floors, ground floor and first floor. And the building has a traditional structure construction. And people from different sectors found to visit this museum.
All right.
That's
Thank
it.
Thank you. Narasimha, you can next.
Yeah, I wrote like people in museum and center of attraction seems to be an ancient stuffed African elephant. These 2 stories, we see a lot of people and information desk and display screens. Thank you.
Thank you. Sharmishta, asking you to unmute next.
Thank you. So pardon me for having, I have attempted to write an essay of sorts, so pardon me for that. The image reminds me of the Night at the Museum movie trilogy, because the image apparently seems to be of the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History. And the image seems to date back to the pre-pandemic era, where people can be seen in the main atrium enjoying themselves, voraciously gathering knowledge about each and every artifact. Some can be seen merrily heading towards the diorama hall. So the image is really breathtaking and refreshing at the same time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll ask Shrikanta to go next. Shrikanta?
Am I audible?
Yes.
I've written lots of people in the room, but nobody seems to be studying the elephant in the center.
Oh, thank you. Snehal, we can't see you. If you're asking you to unmute.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, ma'am. What I see is an elephant in the museum. Some people are seeing it while some are roaming in the museum. There is a CCTV or a TV camera, and there is a reception area in the museum. Thank you.
Thanks, Snehal. Shruti Francis.
Good morning, all. I wrote a museum, public gathering, history, kids. No one is attentive to the mammoth in the center, 2 floors in the building.
Rimpi, Rimpi, you are unmuted.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes.
Good morning, everyone. So this is what I wrote, a sculpture surrounded by a crowd of spectators, some of them curious while some of them are just going by their routine.
Thank you. Ashita?
Yeah, thank you. So I've written it's some kind of an exhibit and people have gathered to look at it. Some people are looking at the exhibit, some are sitting around and some are talking in clusters.
Mridul Saha?
Actually, I have written something. The fact is, they are roaming around. I can see a lot of people roaming around and they are having fun and actually getting a lot of information and getting enriched by the knowledge or with the knowledge.
Okay, thanks, Mridul. Prasad Mali?
Hello, good morning. I have written elephant, people, light, big hall, walls, and museum. This much I have written. And thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Prasad. Anuesha Roy?
Hello, everyone. I have written a museum of natural history, a mammoth as a centerpiece. People are apparently curious and interested to learn.
Okay, thank you, Anuesha. Nida Amreen?
I have written the scene is of a museum. A lot of children are seen accompanying their parents. Maybe the parents have brought them to make them aware of their past. This much I have written.
Samideep?
Thank you.
Yes, I have written that a crowded museum with a centralized projectile of a stuffed mammoth, people all over the place, an industrious hall, boards, lights, projections, and inquisition model. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Samideep. Victor Banerjee? You can go next. Victor, are you here?
Hello, am I audible, ma'am?
Yes.
Ma'am, I have written a museum with aesthetic touch of Victorian architecture. The center of attraction is the giant replica of mammoth. Also, this is a perfect manifestation of the space which is being recreated by the performativity of people who are visiting here. That's it.
Okay, thanks, Victor. Atmika R?
Everyone.
So what I have written is, this is a hall. No, this hall has an interesting architectural design, which reminds me of the Roman times. Juxtaposed to this era is the African elephant on display and the humans of our century. Thank you.
Niti Prem.
Hi, good morning, everyone. And good morning, ma'am. This place most likely seems like the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History, especially in Washington. I could recognize that because of the elephant rather than a dinosaur, which is in New York. And what it seems like, the picture is taken pre-COVID pandemic, because you see people without the mask. So yeah, thank you.
Alay P. Alay, are you here? Okay.
Hello?
Yeah, go on.
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you, Alay.
Elephant in the center of the museum. Yeah, I see elephant in the center of museum, and people around see the lights and posters related to the museum. Thank you.
Shivangini, requesting you to go next. Shivangini, are you here?
Oh, hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah, actually, I have written by giving it a title like Living Dead, because it seems like museum. And I have written that some things never die, to show how we have progressed over time and make us realize that life always goes on by leaving its traces behind, by connecting our past to present. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Sonia S. Pillai, here. Sonia?
Hello.
Yeah.
An elephant is being watched by the onlookers in a museum. The animal is an object of gaze for the people. The animal may be a stuffed material or the model of an extinct species. Thank you.
Thank you. Debajit Ghosh.
Hello, everyone. I have written only one sentence, and I have written that in the chat box. So it was an engaging day at a museum. Thank you.
Janet, you can go next.
All around, opening as windows to what seem like different worlds inside. On
Janet, we can't hear you. Can you be a little louder?
Just a second. Is this better?
Yeah, could you speak a little louder so that we can hear you properly?
There are large openings all around, opening as windows to what seem like different worlds inside. On both the floors, I see people all around watching, curious, with a sense of childlike wonder even among the adults. The large mammal in the middle looks like a woolly mammoth. I could be wrong though. I wonder how many people here have seen an elephant in real life. This is the first time they see such a large animal in front.
Okay, thank you. Pooja, you can go next.
I've written structure, design of the building, color of the stone and the surface of the building, elephant, people, pillars, colorful, curiosity, flag, IMAX, banners, instructions, signboards, small hillock, dried tree, dry grass, plants, barricades, ropes, voices, place to sit. Yeah, that's about it.
And I think that is all. And I have written the past watching the future pass by. And I see one more hand, ma'am, by Gayatri. So, Gayatri, go ahead.
There is an elephant. What happens if the elephant wears a mask? And when can we see this corona-free world?
Okay, thanks, Gayatri. Yeah, that is all, ma'am.
Yeah, Mira, can I just see the videos, because I think now it has become kind of random. Is there a way I can see the people who have the videos? Now I think people without the video and with the video, I think they have gone to the second page. Is there any adjusting you have to do to the video? I mean, the view? Did you do any adjusting to the view? No? Yeah, we are in the gallery view. Even in the gallery view, sometimes people without the video comes, it's kind of come as random. So maybe I will just right. Okay. If I have to see everybody, I have to go to the second page now, because the first page is about people without the videos, unfortunately.
Trying to change the...
Yeah, I can't do any settings change here. I think Shrikanta has said something. I can't do any settings change. I have only two views.
Is it better now, ma'am?
No, it's the same. Okay, what I'll do is I'll just rejoin. Let me see if it works for me again. So I'm just going to go out and join again. All right.
Shrikanta, thank you for the suggestion, but there is no setting to hide non-video participants. So.
Thank you so much for all those hands up and sharing what you read. And there's one more exercise going to come. And before I discuss perhaps the first one, I wish to go to the second one, because perhaps the discussion can be a little more synthetic and integral after that. Yeah, so Mira, can you just share the second slide, please?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. So this is one more exercise. If you can quickly spend 2 minutes on this. The same question, write what you see. No guidelines, no format. And Mira, please, Mira, yeah, only the second slide. And let's stop sharing after 3 minutes. Mira, 3 minutes are over or good to go?
Stop sharing.
Yeah, done.
I'm hoping many of you would have written this for this exercise too, just as what you wrote for the earlier exercise. People who didn't raise their hands last time, maybe encourage them to raise their hand and share what they wrote. I hope, Niharika, you are making a note of people who are raising their hands by taking screenshots.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yeah, muted me. Sorry, I'm part a little part of conversation. I lost.
Mira, we can start asking people to share as they raise their hands.
Sure.
Since the time is ebbing.
Sure, ma'am. So Anuesha Roy is first.
And once again, people who have not shared last time, we request them to raise their hands primarily. Of course, others are also welcome, but if others can raise, that would be nice.
Shall I continue?
Yeah.
I wrote 4.
We can't hear you.
Hello?
Yeah, go on.
Yes. So I wrote 4 points, various instruments, art, colors, and musical vibes.
Okay, thank you, Anuesha. Dr. Amrita, please go on.
Audible, madam. I wrote 2 poems, different musical instruments, well arranged in a room, and different types of art. Thank you.
I couldn't quite hear what she said. Can you please repeat?
Yes, ma'am. I wrote 2 poems. One is different types of musical instruments, well arranged in a room, and the second is different types of art forms. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Gargi, see you. Gargi, on. Gargi, we are asking you to unmute.
Okay, let's pass on to the next
we'll
person,
pass.
Meena.
Krishna Kamal, are you here?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, I have written a shop, musical instrument, and a band party. That's it.
Anamika, you can go next.
And let's be a little quick so
Yeah.
that we can move on.
Anamika, we can't hear you. Still can't hear you, Anamika. So maybe we'll try, we'll get back to you.
Yeah, there are some who have raised their hand for the first time, like Richa, Priya.
Priya, you can go on.
I have written art and music gallery. There are many instruments that I can see.
Okay, thank you. Pushya, Dr. Pushya, you can go next.
Yeah, I've written, the first thing I think is I've been here before. Isn't this the Indian Music Experience Interactive Museum in Bangalore? The myriad instruments, the colors, and the explosion of sounds resonate in my mind.
Okay. Monica, you can go next.
I have written a lot of musical instruments and art forms displayed together in a combination. Thank you.
I see a name, Tangsun. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce it, but if you're here, please go on. Tangsulian.
Hello.
Yeah.
Ma'am, I've written music, instruments of variety, exhibition, and cultural hallmark.
Okay. Thank you. Zerni, you can go next.
Be a little fast, please.
Zerni, are you here?
Yeah, but am I audible?
Yes.
Hi, I've written a soothing melody plays in my mind just by looking at these instruments, as though asking us to be patient through these eerie silent times with the promise of a better musical time ahead.
Okay, thank you. Vignesh, you can go next.
A bright red color background. The display light and space are more erotic and it makes a sacred feel to me.
Okay. Vani, you next. Vani?
Namaste all. I have written, it is a musical gallery, the art gallery and Indian musical instruments, I could say. Almost all are Indian instruments, except keyboard. Maybe I am wrong here. It is, I am observing the painting and notice board next to that. Thank you.
All right. How many of you are, I think there are many more, 19 hands still raised, right? And if you have asked shared your thoughts, please lower your hand so that we know exactly this number is still waiting. Okay, I still see 19. So perhaps we will take one or two more. And now at this point, due to paucity of time, maybe ask you to share in the chat box what you saw.
Yes.
So I'm just
Please.
going to ask two more people.
Yes,
Sunil,
please.
you can go.
Yeah, string instruments, touch screen, and a wedding procession in a South or Southeast Asian exhibit at a museum. That's what it is.
Okay. And Namita, you can share. Namita? Okay, we can't hear Namita, so I'll ask Raj Kumar to share.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, Raj Kumar, we can hear you. Please go on. Okay, there seems to be a disturbance in the line. Please share in the chat box.
Maybe you should, I think he has a problem. Maybe you should move on.
Yes. So maybe we can ask Sridhar. Sridhar, you want to share? Asking you to unmute. Yeah. Sridhar, are you here? Okay, perhaps we can ask Spandita Mukherjee. Spandita, you can go on.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
I have written that there is a lots of musical instruments, guitar, and many more. Maybe it is a store or a museum or maybe an exhibition. It is like an artistic approach and a musical atmosphere. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. So the rest of you, I hope you have all shared your answers in the chat box.
Please lower your hands. All right. Thank you very much for that excellent participation from your side. And thank you to all of you who participated. And thank you to the rest of you who were witnessing what was happening. So that also, I think it's not very easy just to witness when there is an enthusiastic participation from a small group of people and a larger group of people just witness. So that also is important. So thank you for witnessing what was happening in a non-participative manner. Well, it's interesting that what we have seen and what was evoked in each one of us by what we saw was very different. And if you also were keenly listening to what other people shared, you would also have seen some commonalities, right? And can you tell me one commonality? Anyone? Yeah, I know that it's muted. So Okay, Mira, you may have to read me from the chat box. Okay, so I'm not able to, I don't want to go into the chat box.
Sure, sure. So people are saying musical instrument, something on display, art, elephant, and musical instruments.
Okay, anybody else want to say what was the commonality?
Anna says everybody looked at the prominent aspects, not minute details.
Who said that? Who said that?
Anna
Okay.
J. John, yeah.
Okay.
And Sridhar says vibrant colors. Jovi says most people talked about Corona.
Really?
Victor says elephant and instruments. Anamika says observation. Dhriti says we have shared understandings of some symbols. Dhanya S. Nair says music, art, general details. Rimpi says there is a contrast of colors. Mansi Thakur says reflecting the main content of the image like instrument, art, dance, color. Anuesha says displays. Harika says sound. Pimi says visual expression of the picture. Neeti Prem says history and culture. Nisha says infusing imagination and perspectives.
So keep writing, keep sharing that commonality which you saw or which you heard from others in the chat box. Meanwhile, we will discuss a few more ideas. So what happened was very, very interesting, that we had a very minuscule of experience called as visual perception, and perceiving something which is frozen in time and space. And first, as many of you, or at least few of you noted, was from the Smithsonian Museum. And that was a very poignant snapshot from that museum. But that was the description or the name or the labeling of that museum. And the second one also was a museum, actually. It's a music museum in Bangalore. And but that again is just a local description. But what you saw was perhaps much more interesting. And in the first one, I think some of you, when I asked what is the commonality, I shared that. In the first, there was a lot of heterogeneity. There was a lot of unstructuredness. There was a lot of displacement, you can say, because the people were displaced, first of all. They were walking around. And if you even look very closely, if you had looked closely in that given time, you would see a couple of people in a very intense experience pointing to something or asking for something. And the second one compared to the first one was again striking, because there were no real people there, right? There was an absence of people there. And it was again frozen in time, in the sense the aspect of display was much more prominent, and it was much more organized and structured. Of course, this was the difference, perhaps we can say, between these two scenes or these two snapshots. But then it's very interesting that when I asked for the commonality, at least one or two people said that many people were trying to look into the generalities and not the details. Who said that?
Just check, ma'am.
Yeah. Oh, if you can just type out your name, chat in the chat box, so Mira can immediately find out. Someone said that many people tried to look into what was more superficial, or she didn't use that word, but she said that they were not looking into the details. Who said that? Can you write? Anna John raised her
Anna
hand.
did say that. And then Ashita also said only main objects.
Okay, so can you please come up if I can see you? I don't see you. It's very difficult to talk without.
Anna and Ashita, can you switch on your videos?
Okay, otherwise, if you have a real problem with bandwidth, which I'm assuming because of which you are not showing your faces, what did you mean by details?
Dhanya has also said museum art in general details.
Yeah, so Anna, what did you mean by details?
I'm trying to unmute her. She's unmuted.
Hello? Yeah, we can hear you, Anna.
Yeah, so what I meant was that first was the aspect of the point of views, like the museum, the first photograph was a bird's eye view, and the other was a very specific, individualized first person view, so as to speak, through the lens of a camera. Second was the interactions, the kind of interactions between the people and the kind of interaction with the photographs in the second picture. Yeah, that is kind of the thing that I meant, yeah.
All right, thank you, Anna. One more person, Meera, who was the other person you said had a similar comment?
Divya Nair, are you here? Find her.
It's not here.
Sure.
All right. Well, it was interesting that there were certain commonalities and there were certain differences in what you shared and what we all experienced from these two frames. And it's interesting that when we are asked to share what we see, we first of all textualize what we see, right? We convert the image into a text. And then we articulate that text using the tools of language, which of course are letters, alphabets, and words, and so on and so forth. So please keep in mind that it's a miracle that we can altogether transform a very intense experience, such as a visual experience, into another form called as text, which is a completely different neural function as well, but we wouldn't go into that. And what is also interesting is that it's actually a frozen moment, and both were frozen moments. But look at the variety of perceptions which were articulated. There were, of course, a lot of shared elements in that. And the shared elements add a particular feature about it. I don't know whether anyone would like to say that. Or may I give you a hint by saying the way we were talking about what we saw, there was a particular model or a trend or a format in that. What was that format? Anyone? Most of you. I won't say everyone, because a few were very different. You can write in the chat box. Yeah, not general. No, not that. I'm not talking about general in particular. There was a particular format, a pattern. And what was that pattern in which they were sharing?
So
yeah, Victor Banerjee, let us not go into semiotics. We are using common language. No display of things. No. We are talking about the commonality in the pattern in which people shared. Experiential, okay. All right, perhaps it's coming. Describing the visuals. Okay, did everybody describe the visual? Okay, culture, go to our own is an observation. Okay. Words. Perceptive, okay. This is almost like guessing the good word. Well, I think the good word is almost near observation, and it was listing. Most of us were listing, right? You were almost like number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. One, you did this, or you either listed the objects you saw, or you listed the events which you thought were happening, or you listed a particular form of interaction which you thought was occurring there in between the people and the objects displayed. So yes, thank you for all the chat messages. So let's go on from that. So there was a pattern of listing. And this is very interesting that our curriculum, and perhaps in most of the world, I'm not saying just in India, that we are used to consider listing as a very important mode for learning, and particularly because it helps us in memorizing. It helps us in recapitulating. So it's very interesting to note that however different the snapshots which were shared with us, we had a particular pattern of listing and counting and enumerating. And what happens when you list, enumerate, and count? You are actually displacing the context, and you are seeing an object there out of the context. Or you are seeing, Kanchan, can we just listen to this now and later share your messages in the chat box so that others won't be disturbed? Thank you very much. So in listing, what happens is we take an object out of the context and we almost spotlight it. And in our experience of seeing that screenshot, and in our experience of enumerating or textualizing an image, perhaps the amount of listing which we do may not be equal. What I mean is, when we have the experience of seeing it, which I asked you to see for the first 2-3 minutes, I'm not sure whether you were listing at that time consciously, right? Perhaps you were trying to see a storyline in that. Perhaps you were trying to see a connect. But when I asked you to write what you saw, perhaps you were trying to invoke the mechanism of listing, because that is the strongest aid for you to memorize what you see. So what I wanted to share with you, there are actually 2 more exercises which I want to give you. I really hope you'll have time for that. So what I wanted to give attention to is that the experience of seeing something and the experience of textualizing what we see and the experience of reporting what you textualize can be completely different. And why are they different? They are primarily different because we are using the medium of voice, of sound, and of letters which can be ensounded, like embodied and ensounded. So this particular trend in our living, in our education, consciously breaks the experiences which are otherwise could be a continuum. I just wanted to give you this particular exercise so that each one of us realize that truly what we experience perhaps is never articulated outside, right? And some of you might have thought, which is this place or what is that animal? And some of you, of course, invoked your general knowledge of seeing the Smithsonian Museum earlier and perhaps saying this is a museum. And some of you, perhaps, though I didn't see anyone in this group, some of you landed yourself in that particular time and space and started looking around, which is being part of what is otherwise an object. This was a screenshot, which is basically an object. How about we translocating ourselves into that screenshot and experiencing what was happening there? Well, we don't do that, or we generally don't do that, particularly in classes like this, because we are supposed to be very objective and we are supposed to be very dividing in what we're experiencing and what we objectify, right? I hope you are all with me. So friends, what I basically wanted to convey is that in the acts of reading and writing, often people think there's a disconnect, or we consider these two as 2 different phenomena, such as reading and writing. I want to give you one more exercise, perhaps very quickly, and then we will come back to what we were discussing. But keep in mind that we often think And when we say we, I meant in common parlance, in common experience, not as scholars of semiotics or scholars of particular discipline, but in general day-to-day experience. If you keep yourself out of that label of your identity as a scholar in a particular discipline, is your experience considering, seeing, visualizing, and text, and converting that visual into text as two different entities happening in your consciousness? This is a very important question, because in our life, there isn't enough time for us to have a disconnect. Though we are trained, we are coached, and we are even ordered to create a disconnect between the two experiences so that the public space and the social space exists in an orderly manner. So with that little introduction, Meera, can we just quickly go to the next exercise and let us be really a little fast?
Yeah.
And only the next time, only one slide, and maybe I will only use the one slide because of lack of time. Yes. So please quickly read this and visualize what you read. You don't have to write anything, just visualize. Keep it in your mind. Quickly read. I think you might read about, you may need about less than 2 minutes to read that. Meera, is it done? All right, since we may not have much time, and also it's a bit difficult here in a virtual class to hear what you saw, may I request you to just write what you saw in the chat box? Please don't write essays and lines, but perhaps what you saw. All of you can write.
Would you like me to read from the chat box?
As maybe more people write, I think only one or two. Yeah, you can just keep reading, but I think let others write also so that we don't influence others. Please quickly share what you saw. What you saw, the question was, see what you read. All right, Meera, you can start reading. And others can start, others can continue sharing in the chat box what you saw. All right. Meera, we can't hear you at all.
Rajkumar says a clever and kind monkey with a duck crocodile family.
We can read a little faster, Meera.
Yeah, okay. Anuesha says using your brain to get yourself out of dangerous situation. A story teaching about jealousy. Sharmishta says ingratitude. Anna says it reminds her of the graffiti in my primary school's wall that picturized the story. Jaspreet says a good friendship. Rajeshwari says a smart mind of monkey saved his life from the crocodile. Anuesha says using your brain to get yourself out of a dangerous situation. Sunil says ancient India, Panchatantra. Victor says it represents the axiomatic truth to not trust anybody blindly. Krishna says river, forest, monkey, crocodile, friendship. Debajit says the
What
reality
is
of
that?
today's
What did
world.
he say? What did he say? The earlier person.
Krishna says river, forest, monkey, crocodile, friendship. And then Debajit Ghosh says the reality of today's world. Ashita says series of scenes as I read the sentences. Nagashi says Panchatantra's story images came to my mind. Shruti saw river, monkey, tree, crocodile. Mrudu Saha saw a beautiful scenic view. Monica says the way crocodile's wife is shown as being jealous of money. Trinath sees a moral, what a bad friendship can do to you. Anmol says value of friendship. Nirmala Sundar has seen forest, river, trees with jamun, monkey, crocodile, moments of monkey and crocodile eating fruits, monkey on the back of crocodile. Aditi Jain says monkey and crocodile. Richapriya says story of monkey and crocodile, which I have read in my childhood.
Okay, thank you, Meera, because I think now I think people are also listening to what others are saying. So there will be a small kind of influence there. So we'll stop there with that reading. Thank you very much. Well, it was very interesting again to listen to what you shared. The idea was to see what you read, and the earlier was actually to text what you found as an image, right? Just see what happened in these two exercises, and particularly in this exercise. We have, again, an innate ability because of our culture, because of our training, and because the way curriculum is designed for us in our classrooms and in our colleges and our universities, that we be abstract, even when we are supposed to be concrete in an experience such as visual experience. So the exercise was literally to see. But interestingly, almost all of you, except for a few, saw something which is very abstract there. It's amazing to abstract and to have guidelines and moral ideas, right? And someone even said that it is from Panchatantra. What he saw was Panchatantra. I didn't understand how can someone see Panchatantra there, because Panchatantra is the description of that book. Here, the question was to see what you read, right? So you see the disconnect which happens, the disconnect between two primary experiences, and the first one being seeing, and the other one reporting what you see. And the only way you can report what you see is using words. The intensity of what you see is very high, because when you see something, you are also trying to create a relationship with what you see. It can be a distant relationship, it can be an intimate relationship, or it can be a relationship of some sort. Few of you wrote that you saw a crocodile, you saw a monkey, you saw a river, and someone wrote that he or she saw a very scenic place, right? You saw a scenic place. And many of you wrote an abstraction of what you saw, which is converting the visual into an abstract. The visual is very concrete there. And it may have nuances, but the nuances also will be in the perceptual field. But when we transform the perceptual object or the perceptual experience into something which is of the nature of an idea, of a lesson, of a teaching, and so on and so forth, it becomes more of an educative material, right? So again, I want to bring it to your attention that we live in a world where we have forgotten to experience as it is. We are heavily tutored. We are heavily influenced by our classrooms, where the disconnect between reading, writing, and seeing is too high. And also, we are in some way brainwashed to give more importance to text and abstract ideas, which are disconnected from our real-time experience. There's one more example, but I think we will save it for another time, and I will not be showing you that slide because of less time. So please remember that what we are talking about in this class is about reading and writing. And how can you write the reader? Or how can you read the writer? And in the next few minutes, I want to focus on something a little more complex. What we just experienced was part of our day-to-day life. Let me just say some more on what we experienced. Can you please, Mr. Sunil, I don't think I can see you. And can you please not share ideas in the chat box now? And please listen to what we are going through now. And I know that when we don't show the video, our tendency to type in the chat box is much more because something which we need to do, right? So please control that and please listen to what we are discussing. And please be with us. Please don't self-isolate yourselves. So imagine when we walk on the road or go to buy vegetables today, because particularly, I guess most of you are from India, or of course some are from other countries. India is going through, or at least Karnataka, most of India, and particularly Karnataka, is going through a tough lockdown where there is a control over time and we can be out in the road. And if we now walk that path, which we have walked many times, it will be very different. Why? Because it was very starkly different. And with our eyes, we continuously create screenshots of what you see. And now why I wanted to bring in the lockdown experience of the road, because it's very different from our usual experience of the road. But even in usual experience, when we see, we continuously make screenshots. And like in a cartoon, we play all the screenshots together and we weave a story. And what is interesting is the story which we weave out of those continuously passing screenshots can be very different from the actual experience, the actual feelings which we have. The feeling of what we see and the reporting of what we see are very different. And why are they different? Again, let me remind you, it's different because we have been tutored like that as a society, as a community of students or teachers, or just that's how the society works. The dominant way the social space works is by creating binaries and creating divisions. In reading and writing, this is much more complex. I was talking to you about real visuals and text, right? You actually saw something and you were asked to transform that into text. But imagine when we come to reading books, because reading book as scholars, as students, as teachers, that is what we do. Perhaps I wouldn't say most of our life, but if truly you're interested in research, you will truly end up reading books all your life, even if you get a PhD or even if after you retire, and so on and so forth. So book is something very intimate. A book is something very intimate. But the general conception is that reading a book and writing is something completely different, and they have to be analyzed separately. Which means how a book is written and how a book is read are completely two different acts. But of course, if you, maybe let me just say this one jargon, I would like not to use any jargons, but just for the ease, if you read the principles of psycholinguistics, we know that there is a sequence between reading and writing, or what is read of what is already written. The processes in reading and writing, they form a sequence. And what is that sequence? The writer shares an idea and the receiver receives the idea, isn't it? When you read a book or read a page, your immediate belief is that the writer has shared an idea and the reader is trying to receive that idea somehow. And we don't know what are those principles. So the mainstream model of learning or enjoying a book is the giver-receiver model of understanding. It is a very stark, boring divide of giving and receiving. And if you look at the human civilization, human culture, we can, of course, boast of a culture which has taken billions and billions of years to sophisticate our mind and our way of living. But in spite of those sophistications, we are influenced by binary models in our experiences, in reporting our experiences, and particularly in education. This was a course on research writing, and that is why I want to focus on that how much divided are we in our classrooms in engaging with our students? And this was a reflective exercise for me. This was a reflective exercise for you. How can we think out of the giving, receiving model of understanding as the writer gives you something and the reader receives something? Is that all, or is it something else? And please remember, again, as common people, and I think all are common people, and the commonality is something perhaps very unique to us. I'm not saying some are extraordinarily uncommon and most of us are common. No. When I said the word common, I just meant the burden of culture and teaching on us as a society. And there is also this assumption that reading and writing occur to two different people and are two different functions. When you read something, a book, let's say, keep it as a book now for easiness, that reading and writing are happening to two different people and they're two different functions. I read and someone has already written it. So the function of writing is already over and the function of writing is happening now. Again, there's a disconnect in time and space. And but then is that what is happening? Then how do we understand communication? Because there is a need of communication here, right? The author or the writer need to communicate and the reader need to be communicated to. There is need to be something which is happening between the writer and the reader. So the communication between the reader and the writer happens when there's a connect. There has to be a connect. In what space, in what time that connect happens, we don't know. We have to expect to see it. And that is number one. And number two, not only a connect, there has to be a connect between the intent of the reader and the writer, and which is very important. And when I talk about intent here, of course, there are several ideas we can refer to as sightlines, but I may not go into detail. But there is this theory of the intentionality of consciousness, that all conscious acts are intentional to something, which means when there is a transference of intent between two people, which is the reader and the writer, there is also the sharing of certain nature of consciousness, which is beholding both the reader and the writer. And we can for sure say that reading and writing are sufficiently complex that these both can't be straitjacketed in a giving, receiving model of understanding. But there is something else which is happening. And it's also interesting that the reading process, to a large extent, is not even observable to the reader, since it involves multiple levels of a personality, and worldviews. First, when you read a book, it's not very clear what you read. I can ask you, are you reading letters? Are you reading words? Are you reading the nouns? Are you reading the sentences, etc., etc.? But your answer could be, no, I'm not reading the words. I'm not reading the sentences, but I'm reading what is written, which means it's too complex for you to even have a disconnect in the phenomenon of reading based on language and linguistics. So reading is not just an act of linguistics or act of using the tools of language, but something much more than that. And also, the reading process is not observable to oneself, also because the reading is influenced by your worldview and your personality. Your personality and your worldview also influences what you read as these words. Now, you all know that language processing happens through the tools of grammar. We all learn from our schools, lower grades. And it also involves a lot of syntactic and semantic functions of connecting the words and then seeing meanings. And then maybe when from one page to another page we go, we have to connect the words perhaps which occurred in a few pages before and to a few pages later. You also may have to connect the meanings which are perhaps highlighted using these words in different pages. So we also, of course, use the language and tools of language, but then there's also a lot of production of meanings in multiple levels. And what I mean by meaning is not just a meaning of a word, but there's something else, which is a layering of the meaning. The meaning is layered to find the nuances of a particular meaning as we go on. So there is definitely a meaning making which is happening, which is using the signs which we see. So the letters and the nouns and the words also, to use one more jargon, and perhaps I will not use many more, also use a semiotic context, which is interpreting the signs and deriving the meanings out of it. So there is a semiotic function of interpretation which happens as we read. And interpretation, interestingly, is heavily influenced by the intent of the reader, and which is again influenced by the time and space he or she lives in. So it is not only the personality of the reader, but it is also the time and space. And you will agree with me why I say this. The same book, when you read, perhaps many years later, you tend to interpret it a little differently. Why? Because you perhaps have changed in certain ways. Your intents have changed certain ways, and therefore your interpretation also has changed. So the way we interpret is very much dependent on not only our intent, but the intent which is further influenced by the time and space which we live. Now, there's something else which I want to share with you in the next few minutes. I may take a few extra minutes, then 12:30. Meera, if that is okay. I think in the beginning we mentioned, then when you read, if I ask you, what are you reading? It's actually very nice to go through that exercise, to hear from all of you that when you read, what do you read? Some of you might say, oh, I'm reading letters. Some of you might say, no, I'm reading words. Some of you might say, I'm reading sentences. And some of you might say, I'm not reading sentences, but I'm reading paragraphs in whole. So reading itself can be very different, even from a textual context, even from a language context. But then reading is much more complex than this, because there is something else which happens when we read. When you read, Of course, your eyes see the words, isn't it? Your eyes see the word. That is the first connect for the eye to see. But then there is something, another sense organ functions when you read. Can you quickly tell me what is that? Quickly write. I'll give you only half a second because then everybody else will be influenced by what you write. Quickly write what is the other. I will see it, Mira. I will just look at it. Okay, Mira, just quickly read what it is. I think it's getting too fast. I asked, there's another sense organ which is involved when you read.
Okay. Mind, brain, auditory, ear, touch.
Okay, who
Skin,
wrote ear?
imagination.
Yeah, that's fine. I think we'll. Who wrote ear, Mira? How many people wrote ear? Can you read out those names?
Yeah, Anuesha Raj Chaudhary and
from the beginning, from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Ear. Who wrote first?
We have Rishabh.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I
ma'am.
think Rishabh wrote tongue.
Sorry. Sorry, ma'am, I'm unable to see it. Anmol Preet has written auditory.
I think, I think Rishabh first wrote ear and later I think he decided to change to, so then I'll go to the next person, which is Anuesha Raj Chaudhary. Is she here? Anuesha Raj Chaudhary?
Yes.
Can you just unmute her for a second?
Done.
Okay, I'm unable to see her. Is the video on or not?
Her video is not on, but we are asking her to unmute.
Yeah, okay. Anuesha, can you hear us?
No, she's not getting unmuted. For some reason, she's not allowing
Can you
that.
hear us, Anuesha? It's a pity.
It's not happening.
Okay. All right. Who was the next person then after Anuesha?
We have
that ear.
Rishabh and we have Anmol.
Okay, I ear, Anuesha. Okay. Okay, Rishabh changed his mind. That's why I don't want to ask him because he changed his mind and said tongue afterwards. I think it's the same Rishabh. Who else said ear? Mira, in between you said Anmol?
Yeah, and then Soumya Singh.
Okay, all right. Now, Soumya, okay, I see a lot of names. All right, so people who wrote here, can you write in your chat box? What did you mean by that? Because I wish to ask you, but it's very difficult to unmute and hear from you. Can you just write in the chat box, why did you say year? What did you have in mind? Quickly. Those who said year. No one is writing.
Only, yeah, we have
3 replies.
We have 3 replies.
Oh, I didn't get to see any reply. Okay.
Shall I read it out, ma'am?
Yeah, I can't read any. Okay, all right. Yeah, I think I'm seeing it now. Yeah, yeah. So Ashida, I think, yes, that's right. Yes, exactly. I can hear the word actively and use my tongue inside the mouth. Okay, so I think Rishabh is trying to connect the ear and the tongue. Yeah, that's a little complex. We'll come to that a little later, but let's just stick to the ear. Yes, as precisely as some of you said and described here, because we seem to be mentally reading. And it is not just mentally reading, because we are also hearing the voice as we read. Whose voice are we hearing? Whose voice are we hearing? According to Bakhtin, and if you don't know who is Bakhtin, is a Russian philosopher of language. He says the voice which the reader hears is the voice of the writer. It is the writer's voice which you hear when you read. Can you imagine that? Does it sound a little eerie? that the book invokes the spirit of the writer, and suddenly the writer gets to live in your mind and read it for you. The writer reads the book for you through your voice. Amazing, isn't it? It almost sounds like a possession. You're possessed by the writer's voice. So this voice can also be known as your inner voice. So there is a communion that happens between your inner voice and the voice of the writer. Why do we say inner voice? Because earlier we said that when you read, there is a connect between the intent you have, and there's also the influence of your personality, your worldview, and time and space. So when we talk about inner voice, the inner voice is an abstraction or an essence of all those superficialities which happen in time and space. So when we say there's a communion between the inner voice and the voice of the writer, that is happening in a completely different time and space. And remember, none of this is happening in a mechanical way. Oh, now I'm hearing my voice, so this what? No. In an intimate moment of reading the book, you don't even realize that you're reading a book, right? That should be the perfect way of reading, or the actual intimate experience of reading. So even when we read very silently, we hear the voice of the words that we read. And that is the inner voice of the writer. And he speaks through your inner voice. And if you say, I don't hear the voice of the writer, read as silently as possible. Read as silently as possible. Maybe the silence is not enough. I'm not talking about the chatter around you, the chatter inside us, which is causing the obstruction of the voice from the writer to reach you in a different time and space. So read as silently as possible. And that's the only moment when you can hear your inner voice and the voice of the reader at the same moment. And according to Bakhtin, words are not just philological structures, and he considered words to be embodied with the personhood of the writer. So when you read, you're not just reading a word which you find recurring in a dictionary or in a notebook or many other book. No, it is not just the same word. The word has lost its commonality by being one of the word in a dictionary, but it gains a uniqueness by carrying the heart and soul of the writer. That is why the word is embodied by the writer. And thus, reading is an act of intimacy. And there's a personal communication between the minds of the writer and the reader. And there's another very interesting philosophy behind this, to continue from Bakhtin, when he calls our voice when we read as the inner voice connecting with the voice of the writer, or the writer's voice that we hear through our inner voice. There is a little more to this storyline, which is completed by Umberto Eco. And many of you have known him, who has perfected the philosophy of semiotics. According to him, the reader finishes the unfinished job the writer lives with. It is the reader who completes that job which the writer has started using the words. And therefore, the reader, along with the writer, how does this completion happen? If the writer is left with an incompleteness, how does this completion happen with the reader? The reader, along with the writer, reconstructs a psychological framework for making possible the text to be enlivened and visualized. And let me say, in the stage space of the mind. And what is spotlighting that? It is spotlighted by the consciousness of both the reader and the writer. Remember, at least a few theories say that consciousness is not limited by space and time. So it is very much okay to consider that the consciousness of both the writer and the reader, who is in two different time zones and spatial framework, are able to see both their consciousness spotlighting this communion. So it is a very complex phenomenon that we go through when we read a book. And when such a spotlight happens, after the visualizing of what is read, then a transcendence also occurs. And such a transcendence leaves an openness in your mind where the reader searches for his soul in the writer. What I mean is, the reader somehow looks for the writer and he discovers the writer's soul in that transcendence and openness. So you can imagine reading is an absolutely intimate or an absolutely subliminal experience. Do we read like this? No. Why? I don't want to interrupt this particular moment of intimate way of understanding how we read, but I have to say there is an overwhelming use of Control C and Control V these days. Who wants to read? We only want to do two things. First is convert the PDF into mode of editing, and then Control C, Control V. This is not reading, because most of us are now used to reading books in an electronic format and not holding the book, which of course reading in an electronic way is absolutely fine. But are we missing something there? Are we missing the transcendence where you can get to meet the soul of the writer? Isn't it amazing to meet new people? Isn't it amazing to meet the writer who have given you a snapshot, which is not even a snapshot, but perhaps a whole lifetime? Now, when we come to visual media, similar to the superficial structures of language used in reading, we can ask, are there immediate structures that are amenable or observable to any viewer? And are there not so immediate forms which are not immediately recognized by the viewer? Of course, our exercises in the beginning give us a hint to this, that what we see immediately and what we cannot, the unobservable, non-structured spaces in the visual media. So let us take that museum where we saw forms, shapes, accents, configurations, assemblies, displays, contexts, etc. Even in the second slide of the arrangement of musical instruments and few paintings, these were there. And we can also say that in the first one, where there was a museum, there was the interplay of accent and display. Accent is focusing on something more, and a display. And what was that extreme focus in the first slide? You want to write in the chat box? What was that extreme focus in the slide? First slide. Right. Yeah, absolutely. It was the mammoth, right? So that was kind of the gross form was taking a lot of our awareness by being in the center of our attention. So the form, the volume of the form influenced our attention and minusculed the rest of the periphery into something which is completely unnoticed. So remember that in a visual experience, there is a deliberate way of obliterating your experience by showcasing something as the centerpiece, by creating a voluminous form, and by creating a few entities in the peripheral space and giving you an impression that there is something in the mainstream and there is something in the periphery. In fact, our whole life is a replication of this model, which you see in museums, which you see in classrooms, which you see in universities and so on, and companies, workspaces, and so on and so forth, which is basically telling you what you should be focusing and what you should be minusculing into the periphery. Another example to give is the advertisement, right? In the advertisement, hardly anyone looks at the product, but everyone looks at the endorser of the product. Who cares for the product? So again, there is a conscious obliteration of the function of attention. So this is how our culture, our society has excelled the uses of the cognitive power which we all have. And it's very important to keep it in mind that can we do a reverse obliteration of the forced obliteration which is given to us by our education and in our workspaces. For that, we have to be reflective, we have to be careful, and we have to be encompassive. And we have to be non-judgmental at the same time. Because the eye is a very powerful visual organ. It's very difficult to bypass it and go to any other experience. Now, when we read, where and how do the meanings get arranged and displayed? We talked about the meanings earlier. As we read, where do the meanings get arranged and where do this display happen? So there seems to be a display as we read as well. We can also ask, how does our oral reading transmute to the visualizing of the scenarios? When you read, you're also visualizing, right? Unless you visualize, you cannot translate that into a reporting format. The second exercise which you did, which was the reading of that story, and you look at the chat box. I mean, now when you look at the chat box, you can see the question was, see what you read. How many of you could see what you read? Many of you could abstract what you read, which seems to be a higher function of our intelligence, right? Because abstraction seems to be a higher function of the intelligence. But in order to embrace that so-called higher function of intelligence, are we relinquishing that very old experience of seeing as it is? There's a difference between to see as it is and to see as you want it to be or another person want it to be. So please remember that these two are very different. And in the reading process, the meanings that are interpreted are assembled as forms of beliefs, values, and responses in the display space of daily living. Our daily living becomes the display space, and our forms and beliefs and value system becomes the entities that are arranged. So imagine how a grand space that is. I hope you are all with me that, yeah, thank you. So imagine from a little museum, not a little, actually the Smithsonian is huge, but even if you consider that as not so big, consider your daily living as a display space and what you read being showcased there and displayed there as entities. How would it be? And these are the entities, what we call as value systems, worldviews, forms of beliefs, and also responses to day-to-day life situations. And this is the reason that our life and living itself becomes the space of display or becomes the museum. And this is the reason that a good book is never read and left, but its pages are carried with us through our entire life. The page is no more a page, but the page is an enlivened entity who lives within us. Now, thus, what we first saw as meanings generated out of just language functions transforms into what is called as knowledge. And knowledge is something which is very dynamic, and it is not just the group of meanings. It involves meanings, but it's much more than meanings, because it is also something which is very important for us to apply and interpret things in our life. And not only that, it is the knowledge which we transform to concepts, which we use in our thinking and interpretation. So it's almost like a loop, because the concepts and interpretations rely on knowledge, and the knowledge is again dependent on our value systems and so on. And that loop continues, and perhaps we don't have an escape from that loop for the time being, at least. Now, I wish to come to some of the conclusions, and since some of my colleagues have been waiting as well, that how do we shape our writing? And I say shape, you shape your writing using the hands of your personal relationship with the writer and the reader. And to do that shaping together, we have to understand reading as a co-act and not as an act which is bifurcated as readership and authorship, but it has to be one common act. And that shaping of the dough has to be involving the minds of both the writer and the reader. And remember, how do we do that? We discussed earlier, using the voice, silently reading, invoking the inner voice, inviting the writer to embody your inner voice, which means we see our agency in reading, not just as a reader, but as a co-act, and it involves the two roles, which is authorship and readership. So reading involves both the authorship and readership. It is not just reading alone. You become the author as well, or you share the space with the author. And at some moments of that sharing, you almost are the author. You become the author. And there's no distinction between the author and the reader there. And finally, what do we understand from this? I think it's very important that we have to move from a format of didacticism to co-learning and insight. Our classrooms is all about didacticism, which is giving you a list of do's and don'ts, and also telling you who will tell and who is to listen, right? But can we move from that format of social existence, which of course is a valid one, but can we move from a didactic space to a space of co-learning and creating insights together, which I think is very important for us, all of us here on both sides of the screen. And when we believe in such a possibility of co-learning, a narrative becomes a critique. When you produce a narrative, it becomes a critique, and the critique becomes the reader's voice. There is enough objectivity which is infused in the narrative that your writer, your reader, the reader of your narrative will also see a critique there because of the presence of the objectivity, in spite of the subjective element concerning the narrative. So we see language and its structures perhaps as the magic cave. And that magic cave, how does it open? You remember this magic cave? Where people stand in front of the magic cave and we somehow want that cave to open. How would that cave open? How would that door of the cave open? The cave to open, it first tests the wavelength of your voice. And of course, through the magic word of the abracadabra. And if it matches with your voice, then you are allowed to let in. You're allowed to let in if there's a match between your inner voice and the voice of the writer. And who will open the cave of the experience of reading? And once the cave is opened, then you enjoy being there and you also will be mystified. So your voice is the key, and that is what I want to come to. Your voice is what is key. So first hear the inner voice. And if you don't have an inner voice, nothing will happen when you read a book. Because reading a book is to make possible the communion of your inner voice with the voice of the writer. So first hear your voice, and because it is the inner voice which will help you to meet the writer. Hence, read as silently as possible so that you can trace the inner voice of the writer and travel with him. And it's very important, therefore, be as silent as possible. So I will end with a particular quote from Milan Kundera. Of course, all of you know, or most of you would know, from The Unbearable Lightness of Being. And these words are words of Thomas, the protagonist. We can never know what to want, because living only one life, we can neither compare it with our previous lives nor perfect in our lives to come. There is no means of testing which decision is better, because there is no basis for comparison. We live everything as it comes without warning, like an actor going on cold. And what can life be worth it if the first rehearsal for life is life itself? That is why life is always like a sketch. No sketch is not quite the word, because a sketch is an outline of something, the groundwork for a picture, whereas the sketch that is our life is a sketch for nothing, an outline with no picture. Please don't take this as an empty space. Take the last line as a space with possibility. And for that possibility to happen, we have to embrace reading as the most intimate experience in our life. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, ma'am. Her classes are always thrilling, so, and that is an understatement. So yeah, please go.
Thank you, Meera. And I think I have overshot the time. And in fact, I wanted some of you to read a few passages. I think Meera has the PowerPoint with a few more slides, but I don't think we can do that. I wanted people to read some of those passages, but maybe another time. There is a time for always good things to happen again. So I think perhaps we can have some questions or some questions in the form of comments based on perhaps today's discussion, and then we will have some time devoted to the course as a whole. That's why you would see some of your instructors here, and of course Madhurima, Dr. Madhurima Das, of course, without whom this course would not have been meaningful, is already there. And I think my other colleagues, Dr. Saurabh and Dr. Nitin, are also here. But perhaps we will start with a small time, a little time for some discussion and Q&A. How do you do that, Meera? Do you have people?
So if anybody has a comment or question or anything to discuss, please raise your hands. By now you all know how to do that, or then you can also comment. But we'll give preference to those who are raising your hands, so please go on. I can see Narasimha has raised his hand. If there are anybody who wants to say a few words about today's session, please raise your hands. Okay, Narasimha, we are unmuting you.
Thank you, ma'am. Like I heard like couple of times at least mentioning the binary module. Like binary in the sense, like in what sense, we need to understand. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. We'll take a few more questions, maybe.
Sure. Thanks, Narasimha. Kanchan, you
Thank you, ma'am, for this lecture. When you were talking about it, little sounded like a reader response theory, but where in that theory, the focus is more on the reader than the author. But you were talking about understanding reader, author, as a reader, understanding the author. So is that what you intended to say?
Okay, thanks, Kanchan. We'll take a question from Snehal, sorry.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Thank you for the lecture. I have a question. Is there any difference between describing the things and or interpreting the things? Thank you.
Thank you, Snehal. So those are all the questions for now, ma'am. There are more. You can. Okay, I see Sunal's hand and Prasad. Okay. Sunal, yeah, you can ask your question.
Yeah, just a brief question. What about the perceptual biases of our own cognition when it comes to navigating the reader-writer relationship? That's my question.
Thanks, Sunal. Prasad, you can.
I like to say a few words about this course. At the end, just give 2-3 minutes when the all question answer will be happen. And I request you, Meera madam, that give some 2-3 minutes to say some words or allow me to say. It's just a token of thank you and understand how many.
Sure, we can do
yes,
that. We can.
Yes.
It's over, Meera, I think.
Sure.
All right. I'll just take the one which I think the person who asked about description and interpretation. What is the difference between description and interpretation? You might even ask me, is description another form of interpretation? Because you can ask that as well, because that's a genuine question as well. Is description itself a form of interpretation? Or is interpretation something which is completely different from the mode we describe something? Description, most of the time, is paraphrasing. Paraphrasing something else from somewhere else. And in paraphrasing, there's a lot of difference in usage of grammar and the voice, the active passive voice. In interpretation, it is not just description or changing the voice or using language in a more sophisticated manner. In interpretation, there is an element of your personal involvement. And however much, for example, as scholars, however much literature review you do and cite the different authors you have read, in spite of that, there could be an anchor of a particular view which could be solely yours. So interpretation, there is a personal signature. And in description, it need not be there, though you could argue that description is another form of interpretation, but then it is limited to sophistication of language and playing around with language using predominantly the tool of paraphrasing. And I think the other questions, I will leave it to Meera, because one was asking me what theory did I use. I think I didn't use any theory, and I tried not to read up on different theories before this class, because I wanted to rely upon our intuitive space of our being. And I think, as I was repeating from the very beginning, we are sufficiently influenced by our curriculum and our books, so that every little tiny beautiful act in our daily life is converted to a particular form of endorsement, which is given by a former scholar who has written a few books, whom we have cited in our literature review. So everything we don't have to consider in the space of our literature review, and we can be with the moment at that moment. And in that moment, are we with biases? And I think the word bias is slightly, I think, it is slightly pedantic, I would say, and slightly overused, because it is, if you talk about bias, then we have to talk about a lot of biological theories as well, right? So I think, again, the bias is it's a very nice word, but it is a very insufficient word to understand the complexity of what we describe. And I forgot what was Natsimamurthy was asking. But yeah, I think I remember now. What he was asking is, what is the meaning of binary, or how is binary seen? Binary is that which doesn't allow you to have an experience in its wholeness. And you can discover what is that which is not allowing you to have an experience in its wholeness. Anything other than is a binary. Thank you, Meera.
Thank you very much, ma'am. So now shall we have Dr. Madhurima is here, Dr. Shankar, and Dr.
So Meera, so thank you. So let me, so I think others also there, Dr. Madhurima is there, and Dr. Nitin, Dr. Saurabh, do I see them? I think they've gone to the next page. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so
they're all here.
So we come to the last class of this course, and this has been going on for a while, and perhaps we can take few minutes from each of the other instructors here and we can just listen to them for 2 minutes on their experience of this course, of interacting with you. So may I first request Dr. Nitin to share his experience.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Sangeetha. Yeah, I just gave only one session, but it was actually very useful for me, because I think preparing for the lecture gave me a lot of time to reflect upon the process of research. So because I did talk a little bit about the research in general also, and not just about writing. So to me, I think I really benefited a lot by that process of preparing. And I think during the talk as well, I think there were a lot of interactions, and a few people even asked questions and sent emails, and so I really enjoyed it. I hope it's true for the people as well. And I think and very much echoing what you said, I think reading is the heart of writing. Just like in music, listening is the soul of singing, right? So something similar is true with research and writing as well. So yeah, I mean, and if people have more questions, I'll be happy to answer with what limited things I know. So I'll be happy to. But thank you again for the opportunity. And Professor Sangeetha, I think this is a very very engaging and very interactive audience actually. So that, I think that makes it really worth the effort. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nitin. May I request Dr. Saurabh for your experience?
Thank you, ma'am. So good afternoon all. So this, I have also, like Professor Nitin, I have also presented one lecture here, and I must say the experience has been very nice, particularly because first, I have gained a lot while during the course of preparation, and second, while interaction, there was people from the different background, and that actually that was a very interactive session. And this was very interesting course in the sense because writing is always seen as something mostly like a skill actually, and this is something. So first of all, while preparing for this course, I also learned and also analyzed that how the writing is also a kind of the existential necessity, how you cannot write more than what you are actually. So that is why our choice of the literature review, our choice of the research question are somehow, at least in the social sciences, are somehow the extension of ourselves. So that is why in my talk also, and in this discussion also, what I have noticed that how it is very important. First of all, it is very important to do the literature review, but for the sometime we need to suspend that and come to ourselves and realize that what is actually what motivates us to write, to motivate us to do the particular literature review. So that is why this is very important. Hence, I also learned in the sense because I try to explore the relationship in this talk and between the research writing and the imagination, especially from perspective of third critique, reflective judgment. So this has been very rewarding experience for me, and I thank you. I thank you for this opportunity, and also for our coordinators and the participants of the course. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Saurabh. Dr. Madhurima Das, I think she has been the center spot of this course. And though I have not been physically attending, I keep a track of her classes. Absolutely amazing. And Dr. Madhurima, your words. And in spite of the difficulties she had during as the course was going on, she made sure that her classes are not missed. And she was there with her usual energy and vigor. Dr. Madhurima.
Thank you so much, Professor Sangeetha. I think firstly, we have to thank you for thinking of this course and bringing all of us together. And I think there are three components in this course without which it wouldn't have been what it is. One is the fact that we had so many participants come from such diverse and multidisciplinary fields, and their interaction was phenomenal. I mean, even when there were days when we had 280, 290 students, and just the interaction kept us going, which I think really invigorates us as facilitators. The second thing was there was a lot of introspection and reflection that the participants were ready to do. So I think they used this course as a safe space where they shared ideas, they shared their insecurities, they shared their vulnerabilities and their strengths. And I think for me, that's the largest takeaway as a facilitator, because I learned so much. One was at the preparation stage as I prepared for each session, but each session as it finished, I will quote one of my favorite authors, which is Chimamanda Adichie, and she says that you travel to see things, and then you come home to also view it a little differently. So for me, it was while I read about each of those sessions and I prepared, that was one part of the preparation, but while taking the session, it was like coming home to see how all those perspectives came together. And so I have to thank the participants. I have to thank you for bringing all of us together. And the third set of people I would like to thank is the stellar coordinating team. I think they were the backbone of this. Meera, Niharika, Ashwini, Abhishek, Pushya, I think all of them, it wouldn't have been possible. So I think interaction was one of the biggest things, introspection by the participants. And finally, I think each of us found the I in this course. While it was about writing, I think there was a lot of reflection that came about. So thank you so much. It was an absolute pleasure to do those 10 sessions. I felt energized at the end of those 2 hours, and there was so much I took back. And I think that's a huge learning.
Thank you so much, Dr. Madhurima. I think, is Dr. Shankar here? I don't know. I don't see him.
Yes, yes.
Is he there? Okay. Dr. Shankar, would you like to share your thoughts? Yeah, I see him now.
First of all, thank you, ma'am, for giving me this opportunity. It would be tautology because most of the things what I wanted to say has been told by Dr. Nitin and Dr. Saurabh. The course actually helped me personally a lot. I had to speak about a topic which is off the way, I thought initially, because I had to speak on the art of writing from a traditional Indian perspective, and all others would be speaking on it from a very modern perspective. And I was initially a little not very confident about what I would be speaking. The only thing I was confident was that there is something on good writing from kavyas, from the Kavya Shastra, but I was not very sure how much of that would be useful to the participants. But later I found out that a lot has been written on good writing from a Shastra point of view, and so of which I personally had not studied much, and therefore it was a exercise of preparation for me also. And I basically spoke on the art of writing from a Kavya Shastra perspective and a Kavya perspective and a Shastra perspective, and feel that the participants might have benefited a little from that. And again, thanks, thank you, ma'am, and thanks to the course coordinators also.
Thank you, Dr. Shankar. And Meera, maybe can we now take others what they want to say in general for a few minutes? And how would you go about it? Maybe people can write their name in the chat box and then you can call them out who want to speak.
Sure, ma'am. Or you could also raise your hands if you
Yeah,
want to.
raise the hands. Yeah.
Prasad, I thought you wanted to say something, so maybe we can start with you. And meanwhile, if anybody else wants to speak, you can please raise your hands.
Hello, my name is Prasad and I am from Mumbai University Public Policy Department, 4th sem student. And at the end of our 3rd sem, Mr. Mridul Nile give that instruction that you should all done this research writing course for our 4th sem research. And at that time, we means many students are present in the class today also, and we all don't want to do because we all are very burden of the study and everything is there and this COVID pandemic and we don't want to do study. That situation is there. And when we start, sir is very fixed that you all should done it and I should not give you marks and you will not be passed in the 3rd sem if you're not done in this complete course. So at the, what we can say, the forcefully we started it, but at the 2nd lecture, we find it out that no, it is we understanding. And right now, many our class students, we are very clear about what research we want to do. And we started we have finding out our research topic. You are started the research also in public policy. And it's really helpful because of this course. I like to thank Madhurima ma'am, Meera Menon madam, thank you, Niharika ma'am, and Sangeetha Menon madam, and Nitin Nagaraj sir. I have listened his lecture. And Saurabh Todaria, his lectures are also very interesting. Shankar Rajaraman sir, his lectures are also interesting. And we at one point we find it out that research is very boring in a primary stage, but right now we can find it out, no, it is not a difficult, or it gives that extra positivity to research that mostly it is theoretical why we are doing it, or it is not useful in our daily life. We think about it, but it is not, that we understand. I am from Delhi right now. I'm working in Delhi, but still it is very interesting. I find it out. All teachers and coordinators, they always helpful. And I always thank you so much from our public policy department. I like to share name Mr. Mridul Nile sir. He encouraged us to join this. Even current our HOD Liaquat Ali Khan sir and Chandra Mohan Joshi sir, Harshad Bhosle, they all keen to do this, and we are completed this. Thank you so much, all the team of research writing, and we always join your next if you are planning to do any next organize this kind of research writing or anything. We always there and we always oblige, and we are very thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Prasad. Very sincere words. Very nice to hear as well. If anybody else wishes to speak, please raise your hands, and we're also requesting you to be a little brief if possible. So please go on if anybody wants to say anything. Pradul Saha, okay, go on.
Hello, everyone. Actually, I want to thank everyone also, all the faculties. They're truly amazing. The knowledge you all have given us was truly enriching. And I hope to see future associations with you guys if you can do certain things about that. Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks, Madhu. Anybody else might want to speak? Victor? Yeah, Victor, you can speak.
Yeah, I really want to express my sincere thanks to Dr. Madhurima Das for helping me to come out of the digital closet, and the way she was instructing me to stick with the ethical issue, irrespective of the risk and the vulnerability of being a queer researcher I was facing, is really, really pathbreaking. My sincere thanks also goes to Dr. Saurabh Todaria for suggesting me the books of Jeff Malpass on the place and the topography. It is immensely helping me with my research, because the part of my research also deals with understanding the emotional cartography of the place. And thanks to you, Meera ma'am, for taking up all my messages in the unwanted time. And I would really like to participate in almost in all the upcoming session that is being conducted by the Center of CSP. So on the behalf of School of Gender and Development Study, Indira Gandhi National Open University, I owe my sincere thanks to Team CSP. Keep up the good work. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Victor. Anybody else? Okay. I see a lot of messages in the chat box as well now. So, yeah. Thank you, everybody.
Maybe, Meera, I was just wondering, there are also a few people who attended this course from other countries, right? So if they would like to, I of course see some of my friends,
Yes. So,
and Nandini from University of Mauritius.
So, Vimi ma'am.
Vimi, if you could please introduce yourself one more time.
Hi, am I audible now?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Vimi. I'm head of quality assurance at Université de Mascara in Mauritius. I wanted to say a few words, maybe from Mauritius, because we are so far away from India. And I mean, for me personally, although initially I thought it would be quite challenging to follow the full extent of the course, because it takes quite a bit of time in your timetable. So I was not sure I would be able to complete it, but as the course unfolded, as I saw the tutors giving the sessions, it was really a wonderful experience. The interactivity, the thought-provoking sessions, it was really interesting. And I'm extremely grateful for having had the opportunity to attend the session. So thank you very much. We thoroughly enjoyed it, and if there are such sessions, but maybe one little comment I may have, for us working people, at times if the sessions are in smaller chunks, or maybe if we have workshops, like 1 or 2 hour workshops, that would be very much appreciated, because we'll be able to attend on a more regular basis. But thoroughly enjoyed it. Eye-opening sessions, thought-provoking level of interactivity, the level of depth of knowledge of the tutors as well. I think it shows the multi-skills of the different people who were in this session. So thank you very much to all the tutors and all the organizers, and of course to you, Professor Sangeetha Menon, for having spearheaded this initiative. We really thank you from the bottom of our heart, from Mauritius. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I see
Dr.
a hand.
Nandini, Dr. Nandini, please.
We are requesting you to unmute, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to thank you, the whole team, on behalf of all my other friends in Mauritius, and obviously my other friends also who have followed the course for the past weeks, many weeks. I have learned quite a lot, not quite a lot. There are things that I did not know existed. We've been writing, and the theories and all. So it was really, really interesting. And I've attended many conferences, webinars, international webinars. And what I've heard, what I've learned from you, and the way you've organized it, it is the best I've ever been to. And I thank you very much for organizing it in such a way that we have learned quite a number of things that we will be able to put into practice. Thank you very much for this initiative, Professor Sangeetha. Thank you for inviting us and allowing us, Mauritius, to be part of this. And anytime when there's another session that you're organizing, I'd gladly participate. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. I see Zilshka C as well. Please go on. Yeah.
Yes, well, I hope you can see me. The light is not proper here. I would really like to thank Dr. Sangeetha for organizing this course. Actually, when I joined, I did not know what to expect, but then I was really amazed by Dr. Madhurima ma'am, how she was really energetic and so fast, and so many things she was able to teach in such a short span of time every session. Though I can say I thought that I knew a little bit about writing and I had some blocks and everything and barriers. I can say that actually once I started participating in Dr. Madhurima's classes and following what she was teaching, that actually I realized how I can develop. And now I actually see that, yes, I have learned a lot in those sessions. And really other lecturers, tutors were also really, really inspiring. I really see this course as something that should be done by everyone, either UG level, PG level. I'm at the moment, I'm PhD level, but I really think at some point of time in your education, whether you plan to proceed in academic world or not, it would be very beneficial for yourself, for ourselves to do it at one point of time. At least this how this was designed, and this speed and this everything was really fine for me. Timings were fine, everything was really fine. And I was also motivated by I was always keeping a little bit offline, kind of video off, because I like to just watch, but I was really motivated also by the other participants, actually. So not only lecturers, but also other participants who had many inspiring questions also, and through the answers also I got to learn a lot. So I really thank Dr. Sangeetha and entire team, and yes, of course, Mira and Niharika and everybody who was always, you can see, you know that the course like this on digital platform cannot go like this smoothly without entire team all the time making sure it goes smoothly. So really thank you all. And yes, if in future there will be any further courses going on, I'll be really happy to participate. Thank you all, and good luck, and have a great day, everyone.
Thank you. We'll take one last probably comment from Ashwin Joshi. So yeah, Ashwin, we are first.
Yeah. Hi to everyone. I just wanted to say that, this course has really motivated us to do more. Just had a feeling that we just about to get a degree and kind of a thing. I just thought initially I just would like to improvise on my writing skills and things like that. But this has really pushed us to, really work on different areas and things like that. It has really motivated us and, pursue research further with a lot of zeal and, hard work. And thank you, NIAS, for this wonderful workshop. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashwin. Ma'am, any more thoughts from you?
Yeah, Mira, so I think anybody was raised? I think no one more has raised their hands, right? All right, okay. So thank you all of you for your kind words. And as most of you said, this would not have been possible without a team work and team effort. And it is not just also the team effort, but it's also the commitment which you gave. So I think I have to thank foremost the coordinators of this course. And we are all one family here in NIAS, but I think still I have to say a few words. When we started the idea of organizing these online courses, we also, like you, didn't have a clue. How do we do it? Will people come? How do we organize it? How do we organize the time? How do we organize the assignments? And so on and so forth. But one thing which we thought in the beginning itself, that all our courses will be free because of the pandemic time which we are going through, and that we will organize these courses as a commitment to the society and for all of us to get healed. So we all engaged in these activities, such as the course and our other activities of the program, as a self-healing experience. So first we have to thank all of you for allowing all of us to be healed. In a sense, we were healing each other by being in each other's presence. But all this is possible only because there is a commitment to the program. And in the beginning, the coordinators also didn't know whether this will work well, whether it will happen well, how do we manage it. So there's a lot of small details and a lot of complexity involved, particularly with a large number like 100 plus for such a course. And so I have to thank Firstly, Meera Menon, the first coordinator, the primary coordinator of this course, and who has been working with you and with us, all the instructors on this side, and with you, the participants on the other side from the very beginning. And to be considered offering these courses and managing these courses also as an expression of one's leadership and an expression of how you interact with the people around you, whether it be virtual space or the real space. So we also consider this particular activity and other activities as opportunities for us to develop teamwork and how to solve issues, problems. So there is a learning not only from the subject matter of the course, but there is also a learning from organizing the course. And I have learned quite a bit, and I'm sure our coordinators also have learned. But it is not very easy to take up such courses, and you would have seen that almost all the time this course was organized, of course, apart from the instructors, these young scholars who are doing their PhD and who are quite busy in their own ways and of their own other research commitments. So first is Meera Menon. A big thank you to you, Meera, for holding this course together, and in spite of all the challenges and problems, working through it and working with it and coming to this final conclusion of the course. And Meera has been very committed to the course, and I see that in the WhatsApp, because we also have a group activity in the WhatsApp of opening the group for question answers and collecting your assignments. And mind you, this is not an easy job. And why I say this is to tell you that it is possible out there. You young scholars, take up the initiative. Take up the initiative to offer a similar activity or anything which you would think can help another person, because it's possible. This course was entirely organized by young people, and of course, Meera at the helm of that young team. And we instructors, of course, were there, but I think the coordinator's role cannot be sidelined as this. So one more time, a big thank you to Meera Menon, and also thanks to two other people who are with her, who are Niharika Sharma and Dr. Pushya Gautama. I don't know whether she's still here, Dr. Pushya. So Niharika and Pushya also have been ably helping Meera in conducting this course and also assisting her in various aspects of the course. And I also want to thank all the instructors one more time for your time and for being with participants from so many different spaces of our country and also outside the country for your patience. And thank you, all of you, to the audience for being there and learning and teaching us as well, because we consider all these activities as acts of co-learning and not just learning or teaching by itself. So Meera, I think now I will leave you to the formal vote of thanks, which I think you wish to.
Thank you very much, ma'am. So it goes without saying that we had a wonderful course, specifically because we had such wonderful teachers. First of all, I have to thank Dr. Sangeetha ma'am, who facilitated this whole course for us, who thought about the course, who conceptualized it, and then again to Dr. Madhurima, who gave us such interesting, insightful lectures, which we all thoroughly enjoyed. And it was followed by Dr. Shankar, Dr. Nitin, Dr. Saurabh, who are all wonderful minds which you got to experience yourself. And one thing about Team CSP as a whole is how we are taught to actually focus on the experience of experiencing something itself. And that's been the greatest learning for me while doing this, while coordinating this course as well. And it goes without saying that Niharika, Pushya, Ashwini and Abhishek has been of great support in organizing this course. So it feels a little odd to thank you guys, because it's like she said, it's always been like a family here at CSP, and we have been working together to make this happen. And still, I would like to thank all of you all for being such wonderful support. And yeah, and participants, thank you all for like being really there and being interactive, asking questions, and always turning up. We have about more than 100 students every day attending this session, so that is a huge number, and it is an honor to organize a course with so many participants from different parts of the country doing different from different disciplines. So it's been wonderful. And just a few let me say a few information rather. So I have to say that by the end of we have now reached the end of the session. So you will receive your certificates for those who have fulfilled the criteria. So we will be emailing it to you in about a month's time. So because we will require some time to evaluate your assignments. For the last module, there is going to be one more assignment, which we will be sending to you today or within this week. And then we will also be giving a deadline. Once all the 3 assignments are evaluated, we will also take care of your attendance, take a look at it, and we will be sending you the certificates soon enough. So just wanted to let you know that as well. We will now open the WhatsApp group where you can fill in your attendance for today's session. So yeah, I have to say all this as well. So thank you everybody for being such wonderful audience and for your participation, and thank you all the instructors for giving us this opportunity. So, yeah, that is all. Thank you everybody.